Okay. Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. Today we have two presentations for you. We'll be starting with Human Resources. We'll be on page 54 of your binder, and I'll hand it over to Eileen McNichol.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Eileen McNichol, your Chief Human Resources Officer, and I'll start it off this afternoon. Human Resources' mission is to guide a positive employee experience through total compensation and talent management to help employees deliver quality product services. The HR functions of comp and class and benefits make up total compensation, and HR, admin, workforce development, and employee development make up the talent management functions. This year, in January, HR went through a reorganization that eliminated the work environment function. The duties of the work environment manager were distributed to various employees, with the bulk of the work going to the talent management analytics specialist and me. The two employees that reported to the work environment manager were reassigned to other HR functions. These are the HR functions I'll be covering today, but benefits are in Fund 611, and it's not a part of the presentation this afternoon. As a part of the county's strategic priority number 4, effective governmental organization, HR provides the basic services for managing employees throughout the employee's life cycle. Personnel is where the bulk of our budget is housed. There are a few specific programs that have budget funding associated with them, and I'll briefly explain those through my presentation. HR strategically supports an effective governmental organization with 3 goals tied to the county's strategic plan. One is implementing 50% of our talent management programs in 50% of the county's divisions by the end of this year. We're currently at 44% of our 50% goal, and that is implementing it in 100% of the divisions. Under the HR administrative function, we've implemented the following talent management programs: performance management evaluation, performance calibration teams, career pathways, and in 2016, through benefits, we launched the Wellbeing Rewards Program. The second HR strategic county goal is talent management advisory committees, and this is a pending goal this year. The only program cost we have in this fund center, HR administration, is the Retirement Recognition Program. Last year, we recognized 60 retirees in 2017. This year, the HR records management became part of compensation and classification through the reorg. With the reorg, we changed the work environment manager FTE to an additional HR assistant FTE that now reports to the compensation manager. Our third and final county strategic goal for HR is implementing the new pay plan by the end of this year, and we're on track for doing that. Compensation, also, their talent management program that they completed to date was the competency-based job descriptions, that template that we rolled out last year. Through competency-based talent management programs, the workforce development team is partnering with departments to select the right people in the right positions with the right skills. And listed here are the talent management programs that workforce development completed last year and this year. There are 3 programs that have specific funding housed in workforce development. They are background checks, drug screening and testing, recruitment events, and the employee recognition celebrations. In 2018, the cost of background checks increased with the new contract with NATSB, and that was due to the court access fees and driver license checks. And the cost of pre-employment testing also increased for emergency communication. To help cover that cost of the increased background checks testing, we reduced our recruitment cost and the budget for employee recognition. With the HR reorg that was done, we moved the employee relations specialist to employee development, and the employee development group worked with HR administration on the career pathways talent management program last year. There are 3 funded programs housed in employee development: new employee orientation, and last year we served 617 newly hired employees. In our training classes, there were 147 classes in 2017, and nearly 2,000 employees attended those various classes. Our employee assistance program, we did have an increased cost with that last year because there was a new contract, and the cost went up in 18, and it's also up in 19. and they served 615 clients last year. So our budget went up. We had cost increases due to increased contracted services with our contracts. However, even though we did have some increases in those contract costs, we did have a cost savings in personnel from our HR reorganization. And we moved some monies between contractuals and commodities, but as you will see, we actually have a smaller budget in 2019 than we did in 2018. That may have been the fastest presentation you've had to date, but that does conclude my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Renzo.
Where are we at on the alternatives for our health insurance?
We are going to be having a workshop at the end of June. We're going to have IMA here and various vendors, healthcare providers to be here to talk with you gentlemen and allow you the opportunities to ask questions and make suggestions as to what you'd like to see in a plan.
Any information we can get beforehand to prep us about the possibilities? And
Is there any particular information you would like?
well, no, I want to get any information that they can provide of the types of options that might be available and how we might work things, just so I can read it and be prepared to
Okay.
ask questions while they're here, as opposed to hearing it for the first time and then you think about it later. Oh, I should ask this, this, and this. So.
Okay.
We actually have a date set for that. I think it's June
26th.
which is a Tuesday workshop. We're going to designate from 9 to 12 in the morning. Between now and then, we'll be in contact with these providers and offer them a small slot of time to come in and talk to you about options. And as we get information from them, we'll forward it right to you in advance. Right. Now, just to remind you, we're talking about a 2020 implementation. So the year 2018 is designated for research and analysis. We hope to have
And
an
the RFP.
maybe by end of year, hire a company by beginning of 2019 and spend 2019 in education and training mode for employees to make the transition and jump into 2020.
Because we can.
Adjustments for 2019.
Right. Are we including this direct patient care model?
Yes. That's going to be one of the options that will be provided to you with this information that you're asking for. There will be the direct care model, the health savings accounts, all the various things. That's what the workshop will be for, be set
Even if
for.
there's things we haven't heard about that,
Correct.
Yes. We're actually putting a survey out to all employees within a week or two. Heather and Emily are just finishing it up, and we're going to be asking employees for any suggestions as well. So we'll compute that in. We'll have all that analyzed before we meet with you on 27th.
6th.
There's okay. There's an option. There's some a couple of organizations out there that people can belong to that are faith-based, where they pay their monthly. They get told how much they have to pay. I would want to include the possibility of allowing people to join that, and we pay their in lieu of an insurance. I just want to throw everything out there in case, be able to answer questions in case they come up. But any alternatives that people get, if we pay those fees instead or whatever, just to check into it and see if that's an option.
All right.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you. Just curious, as capers fall under this budget, or is that something we do somewhere else?
Capers is managed through HR, but that is paid for out of individual departmental budgets for that employee.
Okay, that's good. I have a question. I'm looking at the budget here, trying to figure it out anyway. Is there a breakdown somewhere? I would assume most of what you do in HR would be salary.
Correct.
Because you have a lot of employees that do a
Correct.
lot of things. Okay. How much of your budget is non-salary related? Like, I assume it's under commodities for the
Yes.
retirement programs and the employee recognition celebration events. How much money is set aside for those things?
I'll be able to tell you.
Where is that in the budget?
Page 55, Commissioner.
Okay.
As I had said, we have a few programs that I outlined as I went through it, but it would be, like Lindsay said, on page 55.
Is that the almost $48,000?
Right.
That's the number?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it's got a 29% increase this year planned?
According to this, yes.
Are we going to do more things, or?
As I said, we have a few contract expenses or contract prices that went up in 2018 and 19, and we have taken additional cost cuts in some other programs to help cover that, so we're not asking for any more money to cover those contract prices, those additional contracts.
Okay.
And if
I know we're doing some things different. We used to do the crystal clocks, and then we moved away from that.
Right.
I assume that budget would have gone down because of that one thing, but.
It did. It went down last year.
Okay.
Yes, and that is in the employee recognition part, the funding for that. Let me turn you to that page. That would be page 7.
Page 7. Oh.
We have a little over $5,000 budgeted for employee recognition, and that's to cover the room rental, food, and various miscellaneous expenses. The retirement piece is on page 4, and we have $6,500 budgeted for the retirement program.
Okay. And I have another question on the drug testing. Do we only do the drug testing and background checks on new employees, or do we do that for?
We do that for people who get transfers or promotions as well.
But in terms of a random drug testing program, we don't
We do
that
not
at
do
all?
random, except for the fire district. We do random there. And we also, when we have someone who has been in the rehab program for alcohol, we do it there as well. Mr. Spears?
David Spears. We also have random drug testing for our truck drivers with CDLs.
Right, and that's for DOT. But we do not have a random drug testing for employees in general.
Okay. How's the leave donation program working out?
To date, it's worked out very well. We are allowing employees, or the policy allows employees who are dealing with catastrophic or extreme health conditions who have eligible for FML, run out of sick leave or vacation, that they are able to utilize the leave donation. We've had a lot of donated time in there. The amount of the fund that's available is around maybe $80,000 that's still available. In the first 6 weeks of the program that started back in at the end of 2016, we had like 55% of the donations came in the first 6 weeks. But we have had a steady amount of people who have donated time, whether it's time that they're going to lose from vacation sell, they can't sell enough, so they donate some vacation, or people who are leaving and they want to donate some of their sick leave into the leave donation pool.
Yeah, okay, so I was just wondering, so and then maybe this would be another discussion we could talk about later, but I'm curious about our maximum limits on vacation and sick leave, and what are the options for employees? If they don't want to donate it, what are the other options? I'd like to have that discussion
Okay.
off the bench, I guess. We could we can
Okay.
talk about that later, but I think that's all my questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I have one question. When I was in USD 259, the people that smoked had to pay additional for their health insurance. Do we have anything like that?
We do not currently. That is an option that we can definitely look at.
It what now?
It is an option we can look at. There are companies, like you're saying, with USD, there are organizations that do charge a premium amount for employees that smoke.
I don't understand why we wouldn't charge a premium to convince people that that's bad for their health. If they choose to, it's their lifestyle, but we shouldn't be subsidizing their health if that's going to be detrimental to their health.
Understood.
Those are the kind of points, Chairman, during the workshop that we could talk about and explore.
Okay. Well, I'd like to discuss it further. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Judge is up next.
He is. We have District Court on page 318, and I'll turn over to Judge Fleetwood.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Judge.
Kate, you want to? Sorry, I'll try to get out of here for you.
That's okay. I'm always waiting for somebody.
Sorry, I don't have the PDF, so I can't control it.
And Commissioners, just to let you know, your copy should be here in just a moment.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioners, I'm going to, as always, let Ellen House, our court administrator, do the PowerPoint and the actual numbers that we present here. I just want to take an opportunity to thank you for the opportunity we have to come and explain what we're doing. The budget is going to be significantly the same as we've submitted previously. Shouldn't be a lot of differences there. There's money being asked for appointed counsel. That's always a requirement. There's always it's an additional need for further appointed counsel, and that's a constitutional and statutory requirement that we just have to meet. We just wanted to let you know. We have had prior discussions also about extra judges. I will tell you that based on experiences this last go around, my discussions with legislators, that probably is not going to happen now for another 2 years, no sooner than that. So as far as planning is concerned or making decisions, I think it's still a long-term something we have to take into consideration. We are still requesting additional magistrates rather than district judges, but we'll still need courtrooms for those. But I think we can put that off at least 2 years before we can expect. It's kind of a chicken or the egg, because we really can't. We have no place to put a magistrate if they were to give them to us. We don't have, on the other hand, we probably need a magistrate before we can hurry up and build a courtroom for them, kind of thing. But we'll try to keep you informed on that as much as possible. I know there have been questions previously asked about licensing opportunities for the county and other stakeholders here in the county, like the sheriff, the DA's office, the county court. I am in communication, and just recently got an email from Justice Biles, who is the liaison, and I'm going to have an opportunity to discuss with him hopefully this Friday and find out if we can continue our practice previously of just as we need licenses, we will be responsible for making that decision, and we will take care of the costs and all of that here locally, rather than going through the Office of Judicial Administration in Topeka. I want to maintain the authority to continue to do that because obviously the speed that we can adjust to our local needs as they come up, rather than going through a bureaucratic decision-making process. So I just want to assure you I'm doing everything I can to try to have that solved before the need arises. So. And that's as we switch to the new case management software. I'm going to turn some time over now to my court administrator. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ellen House, Court Administrator for the 18th Judicial District. Thank you for the opportunity to present our requests for the 2019 budget. The mission of the 18th Judicial District is to provide fair and just services in a courteous and timely manner. That seems very simplistic, but when we really look at what we do, that's what it boils down to. We try to be just and fair, and we try to do it in, like I said, a courteous and a timely manner. In today's presentation, we're going to talk about kind of 3 different areas. First, the district court and those areas that are funded by the general fund or tax dollars. The district court, we have one little section that is non-tax money, and then of course the office of the court trustee, which is non-tax money. As you know, the district courts are the trial courts in Kansas. We cover everything from your basic traffic stop, speeding, clear up through capital murder and everything in between, divorces, small claims, care of the mentally ill, protection from abuse. It runs the whole gamut. Kansas is divided into 31 judicial districts. There's a district court in each county. The 18th Judicial District, we're large enough that Sedgwick County is our only county in our judicial district. There's a little map that shows kind of how the state is divided up. We have 28 elected district judges, 2 administrative hearing officers that hear only the 4D cases, and then 1 full-time equivalent judge pro tem that covers like protection from abuse hearings, small claims, fills in during judicial conferences and that sort of thing. Per statute, the county commission is required to pay the operational expenses of the court. So when you look at where the money comes from to fund the court, part of it comes from the state, which pays for all of the personnel and benefits for the district court employees, but then you all are required to pay for the courthouse and our office supplies and the things we sit in and use and our computers and everything else. Most of our budget are things that are statutorily required, things like jury fees, interpreter fees, transcripts, law libraries, witnesses, and then, of course, always the large one, the indigent and defense fees. We actually topped $1.9 million in attorney fees last year, which is the largest ever. That's a trend that we continue to see go up, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. We also pay for court services, which that covers our probation officers, our child in need of care officers, pre-sentence investigation officers, that sort of work. We have our clerk of court. They process over 60,000 cases a year. They answer over 100,000 phone calls, respond to more than 50,000 records requests. They're pretty much the front line that the public usually sees when they come to do business with the court. We also have our own IT department, and we have 8 IT staff, and they cover over 300 users across 4 locations. We have over 600 networked laptops and desktop computers, and the whole range of printers, networked phones, scanners, and everything that goes along with our IT department, and they maintain that on their own, separate from the county IT department. And then we have a drug testing fund, which it covers the costs of people that need to have UAs ran. Rather than sending those out to an outside agency, our court services officers run those in-house so that the judges can have instantaneous results and make a decision right there while they're in court. And then finally, out of our tax-based budget, we have our parenting classes. And by statute, everyone that is involved in a divorce that involves children is required to go through a parenting class. That is something that is taught in-house, and it's funded by user fees. We have one small area in the district court budget that is a non-tax fund. That's the Alcohol and Drug Safety Action Program. Prior to 2013, any money that came in to this fund from someone who was convicted of a DUI was paid out to a provider. In 2013, the legislature changed the rule so that the defendants pay the providers directly, but we still need to keep this fund open so that any money from old cases can be received and dispersed. So everything under the district court umbrella totals $3.3 million, and it's a 0.7% decrease from our 2018 revised budget. The court trustee is our child support, department. They are broken into two different areas, the 4D and the non-4D, and that's Title 4D and Title non-4D of the Federal Act. And that depends. If you're 4D, then you have state involvement such as food stamps or medical insurance, that sort of thing. And if you're non-4D, that just means that the court trustee's office is there to help collect your child support for you. Even though the employees under this are state employees, again, by statute, their salaries and benefits run through the county, and so their budget looks a little larger, and it's a total of $6.3 million for 2019. But again, all that money comes through in user fees, and so there's no tax dollars involved. Everything combined for the 18th Judicial District is a total of 0.81% increase over 2018. Now to our decision packages. We have 3 this year. The first one is an upgrade to Microsoft Office 2016 for the entire court. The reason we need to change to this level of Microsoft is because the state has entered into a contract with Tyler Technologies for a new statewide case management system called Odyssey, and it requires 2013 or above. We found out we can no longer purchase new copies of 2013. We have 2010 right now, and so we have to purchase 2016, so we're asking for the money to do that so that the new case management system can operate. The second is $10,000 for the continuation of our new self-help center for pro se litigants. It actually opened today up on the 4th floor. More than 25% of our divorces, and we have about 8,600 divorces filed here a year, now involve pro se litigants. And what that means is these are people that are doing divorces that have chosen not to hire an attorney and are trying to do it on their own. And so when they come to court and they don't understand the rules, or they don't understand that, the paperwork needs to be filled out in a certain way, it bogs everything down. It makes it confusing. We have to reschedule them. And so by having this self-help center, they can go and be assured that they are using the correct forms. We have the forms set up so that they read on a 4th grade level, so that instead of saying things like litigants or defendants or respondents, it's person applying for the divorce, person being, the divorce is being filed against you. Everything's down to common language. And then finally, why is the district court always asking for an increase in attorney fees? I know every year, here I am asking for more money. Well, this is the 3rd year of the commitment you made 3 years ago, and greatly appreciated, to bring everybody up to the level of $70 per hour across the board. And I cannot tell you how appreciative the attorneys are. However, it does cost money. In 2016, you can see that out of our total budget, attorney fees were 53%. In 2017, that was up to 57%. And everything except for the light blue wedge, that's 22%, everything in there is those very specific statutory requirements, the things like the jury fees, the witness fees, the attorney fees. And then everything else is our office supplies and our furniture and that sort of thing. So attorney fees are a very, very major part of our budget. You can see over the years how the costs have raised, and you can see where they are raised. SYNC filings, child in need of care out at juvenile, those cases are on the rise. And if you remember from past years, those cases are not just one attorney per case. You have to have an attorney for the children. You have to have an attorney for the mother. You have to have an attorney for any father that might be alleged or involved in the case. And so you can have 6, 7, 8 attorneys easily in one case, and that all really adds up. The other thing, juvenile felonies. If you look at juveniles the juvenile felony cases, they're actually trending, the number of filings are trending down a little bit. However, the severity of the filing continues to raise. Probably one of the most scary numbers is if you look at 2017 murders, we had 9 juvenile murders in 2017. And so those fees are going to come to us in 2018, 2019, as those cases process through the court. And so that's why I think we're not going to see any sort of a downturn in the total amount of attorney fees anytime soon. The other big thing that is being talked about around the courthouse is the decentralization of dockets. If you remember, I believe Judge Fleetwood informed you last December that we were ordered by the Kansas Supreme Court to move from a master calendar to an individual calendar system. Again, it was an order from the Supreme Court. We got a grant and consulted with the National Center for State Courts. They came in and worked with us on how to do this. Came up with a very good plan, I think, and it adds a judge to the criminal department, but it also does impact the DEA and the sheriff due to coverage. And so we've been working really closely with them to figure out how they're going to cover these specific courts when we've had a lot more flexibility in the past. But that is something to be aware of. And I will be happy to answer any questions, and I know Judge Fleetwood would be happy as well.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. I mean, this probably isn't really why you're here, but it was a curious number. You said there was 8,600 divorces filed in Sedgwick County per year?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, on page 4, slide 8, you said there's 3,500 marriage licenses per year.
Okay.
That means there's more divorces than marriages.
That does not surprise me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. I've noticed, without considering it to something related to the budget, I have noticed that the judges will often get phone calls to perform weddings. And when I first came here, I would get, and there were 25 judges at the time. I would get 2 or 3 requests for marriages every week. Now, if I get 2 or 3 in a month.
They just like the other judges more. Just kidding. I'm not going to get married again, but if I was going to get married, I'd love to have you at my wedding. But I plan on staying with what I've got now. So.
Well, I'll buy flowers.
Good. Well, anyway, no offense to you. I think you're a great guy.
There were much fewer marriage licenses being issued just as a social.
Well, I've heard, and again, this is probably not really why you're here, but I've heard, 50% of the marriages end in divorce. That's not the numbers anymore. This is much different. I don't know if anybody else is paying attention to that, but that's pretty shocking. It's something I think the culture ought to be aware of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I may have one other question to me. Go to whoever else. Let me think of my next question. Unless there's anybody else.
Very good. I guess I'll ask a question. The other day we heard from Mr. Yost, and he runs a little court. And his court management system that he needs, he asked in his decision package for $186,000 to purchase a court management system, where that he could use the same one that the Supreme Court's directed you all to use,
Right.
But they won't let him use it.
Well, we don't. I'm in regular communication with them, trying to convince them that what they do is to allow us the authority we had under using full court. We had authority to just, if we saw a license, if we needed another license here locally, we just went ahead and bought the other license, and whichever county budget it had to go to would pay for it, but we could just do that directly. That would be cheaper than it would always have been cheaper than buying a full a full version of the Odyssey software that we're moving to. We are trying to assure ourselves that we are going to have that same authority. I have not had an answer yet, but I am communicating. I'm going to be up there Friday again. I'm going to be talking to Justice Biles and see if I can't push a little harder for an answer on that question. I'm trying to encourage them. My line to them is in any organization, be it corporation, business, or government, innovation comes from the down and goes up. Innovation does not come from up and go down. And I'm trying to convince them that they need to maintain that flexibility, and that flexibility comes from allowing us to make these kinds of decisions. So I'm pushing for it. I'm sold on it because I know your options, if we can't maintain that ability just to buy an extra license, means that you either buy Odyssey or you buy the full upgraded full court enterprise. Neither one's cheap, and we're trying to save the county money on that to just allow ourselves opportunities to buy additional access licenses.
Okay, anything that you can do, we would appreciate you helping us out.
I am trying, yes.
Why are they reluctant to not keep the same practice? Do you know? I mean, what's the issue?
I can only speculate. There is a big push statewide to move towards a uniform system across the state. If you're in Ulysses, Kansas, or Sedgwick County, if you go to court, it's going to be operated the same way, same rules, same application. When you first hear that, it says, "Oh, that sounds good," It's, but it's my concern is if we do that we lose the innovation opportunities. And so I'm trying to convince them. I understand what we want to try to have a uniform system so that if there's a clerk out in Greensburg that has some extra time, they can log in and help process paperwork and cases here in Sedgwick County using this system that we're buying into. In order to do that, there does in fact have to be some uniformity in the process. I think that shouldn't extend to licensing decisions, things like that.
Yeah. Aren't we talking about buying a license of the same program?
No, it'll be a different program altogether.
For our district court.
Right. And so it's you buy. We can either get you a license through the new program so that you can continue to use a uniform system with us, have the same access and know what the court is using, or you continue with the old full court. The problem with using full court is they have gone to a new full court enterprise, and they're no longer supporting the module that you have purchased. So at some point in time, it will just become more and more of a clunker that...
I know, but we're wanting just to get a license for the new one, right?
That's right, and
okay,
that's what I'm trying to support.
That's my question. Why are they reluctant to say that we can do it, though? Because we would then be having the same system.
They're applying the uniformity not only to the use of the system, but the management of the entire software program. So everybody gets their licenses through. If you need a license, you get your license through OJA rather than talk to the local chief judge and get a license there.
I see.
We can't function without bureaucracies. We need them because they're kind of like the continuing knowledge base, but sometimes it kind of gets in the way because their drive for uniformity on all things and consistency in all things can get in the way of that.
I see. But our argument is the consistency really should be about the system itself.
Exactly.
Right, because in the end, that's really what matters.
And that's the message that I'm presenting.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well, we do appreciate anything that you can do to support us on that.
I'm trying. I really am trying on this because I know.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell has come up
with
his question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious. I'm looking on page 320 of the budget book. It looks like your drug costs, 2016 it was $42,000, then it's went up to $57,000, then it went to $100,000. You're asking for the same number this year. I'm just, I don't know what happened in the past, but I guess it's about $20 per drug test. Is that?
Yeah. Yes, that's about right.
Is that a competitive bid that gets us to that, or?
Yes.
Do we use the same vendor for HR that we're using for the court system, or is that something different?
That's not our cost. That is per drug test. That is the cost of the drug test, of the gloves that we have to buy to go with them, of the trays that we have to use, of the vials that we have to use, of the refrigerators we have to buy to keep the drug tests in. It's all the costs surrounding. So that's not a per drug test cost.
Okay. And it sounds like this is entirely separate from anything else the county is doing. This is completely within the
Yes.
judicial court system. It's not something that the county can participate in, whatever you're doing there. So it's a separate program entirely.
It's a separate program, but we do go through the county purchasing to buy our drug kits, so
Okay.
that we are getting competitive bids to purchase the kits.
I would ask Judge Kevin Smith, and I've talked a little bit in the past, and he's a huge advocate for the court-appointed special advocate. Am I saying that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
CASAs?
Oh, you're talking about CASA, yes.
Yeah. And is there anything in this budget that relates to the CASAs in any way? That are we looking at that as an organization, or is that something that's done outside of the 18th court?
We don't
think
currently
we-
have an act.
Yeah.
Well, CASA is its own.
It's his own thing.
CASA operates on their own budget, but they provide volunteers to the court to use when they're available. They have a limited number of volunteers. We try to use them, and that's one of the things Judge Smith has tried to push, is just to get organizations to supply more volunteers to CASA so that they can offer them to the court.
I don't know if we've actually solved the problem. I know there was a large grant, I think, from one of the companies here in town that
Yes.
helped with that dramatically. And I don't know, I have not looked at Wichita's budget this year, but I understand that Wichita is doing something with CASAs this year that feeds into this system. And I was kind of expecting to see that on one of these decision packages, but it's not there. So I was just curious if you...
It's not a budget item on our budget,
Okay.
but we have access to the CASA organization to supply volunteers for these youth that are at risk in the SYNC program.
And then finally, again, since you have your own IT department and you're doing your own purchase for Office 2016, I'm curious, is there any magnitude of order if the county itself needs to do the same thing? Have you guys looked at the county's IT and find out if there's any way we can reduce the cost by scale, by scale?
If the county were to make the same purchase,
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering, it
that-
seems like, you
we
guys are
haven't-
operating kind of, independently, and I don't know if there's any
Right.
coordination or communication between what we do as a county and what you guys are doing as a judicial court system.
no, not on this issue.
I guess maybe ask manager just to
Yeah.
verify there's not something that we ought to, if there's a county need, I don't know if there is. I don't think he's asked for that, but I was curious. It's a fair amount of money, $138,000 or something.
Right.
So, anyway, just wanted to,
Certainly, yeah.
that's all I have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Judge, thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, what do you have next for us?
That was our last presentation for today. We do have time for discussion if there's anything else you'd like to talk about.
Okay. Commissioner Howell, did you want to bring up anything on the election commissioner office?
I do, since you asked. She's advocated for, the election commissioner advocated for a fairly large addition of poll workers, and she talked about long wait times. I was able to get the tool. We talked about this when she presented, and I did get that tool. I spent some time working on that. There are some assumptions that were made, entries into that tool that I think, I guess, me personally, I disagree with that, the assumptions. One of those assumptions is check-in time. I think that means the process time when someone says, you get to the table and someone says, what's your name and address, and you hand them your driver's license. Was that part of the process take in terms of amount of time? Her default time was 2 minutes, on 2-minute average. I don't think that's what I've experienced. I've experienced it much faster than that. So if you put in, let's say, 1 minute, and I've asked a few people, some people thought it even takes less than 1 minute. Let's just say it was 1 minute. And then the amount of voting time, the average that she put into the tool was 5 minutes. The state allows up to 5 minutes, but I don't think that's the average time, especially on, believe it or not, I think the primary, I'm not sure if the primary or the general's got the longer ballot. I think the general actually has a shorter ballot than the primary, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But nevertheless, I know I've never taken anywhere near 5 minutes to vote once you get onto a machine. So the station times for check-in and voting, in my opinion, were not the numbers I would have used. And so I put in 3 minutes average to vote and 1 minute average to check in. And based on those input numbers, the poll site that was told to us would be 8.2 hours to check in, according to that tool, went down to less than 30 minutes. And that particular poll site, if you added one more check-in station, it had two. On her premise was it would have two check-in stations. Some of the larger poll sites have as many as 6 or 7 check-in stations. So if you just change it from 2 to 3 at that particular poll site, the average time, the peak time for that poll site drops down below 8 minutes. So it went from 8.2 hours down to 8 minutes as a peak time at that poll site. And so I guess with that information, I guess I need to go back and question all of the data that she presented on that. That presentation, in my opinion, needs to be completely maybe redone. I'm not sure that I agree with what we were presented. And I do have other questions out there, and based on what I've just presented just now, she's not responded back to my understanding. Maybe I've misunderstood something, I don't know, but I'm certainly open to being told that I did it wrong. But I've used the tool to the best of my ability, looked at all of the sites that have concerns in terms of long wait times, and they're all, in my opinion, fairly solvable without a lot of extra work to change a lot of things. And one of my questions also would be, just because we have theoretically a 50% increase in voter turnout at the poll site, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily correlate to a 50% increase in poll workers needed. So there ought to be some type of a formula that gets you from the number of voters assigned to the poll site, the expected voter turnout, the number of voting stations, the number of check-in stations. Those ought to be factors of some type of formula that would drive you to anticipate how many poll workers you need to run that poll site. I've not seen that equation. I hope there is one. There should be one. And I would say if you had, 100 voters at a poll site, you need a certain amount of staff to run a poll site. And if you had, just because you increase the number of people that show up at the poll site doesn't necessarily mean you have to have an increase, a linear relationship between, a ratio between the number of voters at the poll site and the number of poll workers is not necessarily a 1-to-1 or a 50, I'm not saying it quite right, but I guess my point is this. I guess I would question pretty much her requests entirely. I'd like to start back over again and rethink that. Just the tool alone brings up a lot of questions. And so the data we were given about long wait times and all of that, I think it was misrepresented perhaps, maybe not intentionally. In fact, I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but I'm concerned that the data we were given was incorrect, and I'm wondering about the number of poll workers also being incorrect. It's a major expenditure consideration for us, and it even made the headlines in terms of us trying, there was comment about we're disenfranchising voters. It was going to be 414 or 441 walk-offs at that one poll site. That can't be true. In fact, changing it down to less than 30 minutes, the walk-offs was 8. If you add that one check-in station, the walk-offs at that poll site was 0, according to the tool. So we need to go back and rethink about how to solve the problems that she presented, but I think that the premises on a 2-minute to check in and 5 minutes to vote on average can't be correct. I think that's, I don't know what your experience is, but my experience is that's not even close. I was a supervising judge during a number of elections in my past. I reported, before I was elected, I reported to a poll site. I opened that poll site. I was in charge of that poll site, so to speak, and my experience was back then we had poll books, and you had to flip the pages and find the appropriate voter. Back then, it maybe was 2 minutes. That maybe would be more accurate. But today, with the innovation, the new technology, the automation that we have, the scanning of driver's licenses, for example, and the electronic poll books, I don't think that that's a reasonable amount of time. So with that understanding, I think we need to start over with that budget request. Yeah, I mean, again, her budget request was for next year. Let's talk about 2018. She made a request for supplemental funding for 2018, and that's my concern. I don't think that was accurate. For 2019, maybe it's fine because that's a city school election. I don't think there's any problems with that one. So that's all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I don't know that we need to revisit her budget proposal because it's 2019.
I agree.
We've got a governor's election coming up, which is going to be critical that we're successful. So we may need to come back to a staff meeting to take a look at what's needed and see what our staff needs. So we probably ought to talk about that a little bit more detail. Okay. What do you have next on our agenda?
Tomorrow is our last session at 9 a.m., and we'll be hearing from Public Services.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions? Need anything from us? Just be here at 9 then. All right, see you in the morning.
Intend
Thank
to
you.
bring them back.